All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thanks for joining us today on this webinar about the new and latest RISA releases. And so my name is Ben Follett. I am the, excuse me, I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at RISA. And we're really just going to take some time today to go through a little bit of what's new in the RISA building system. So focused on what's new primarily in RISA 3D, RISAFloor, and RISAFoundation, which were just released over the last couple of weeks. And so before we get into that, though, let's talk a little bit about just some of the specifics of the webinar. If you are new to using Zoom webinar, obviously, my hope is that the audio, you've already figured that part out. If you're not hearing me, certainly put something in the chat. You also have the ability to use the Q&A box. So there's just in a little navigation with Zoom, there's a little button that says Q&A, and you can go ahead and type your question in there. We can look at some of those questions at the end if they're not already answered, but my colleague Alan, who's a technical sales engineer that works with me, will be there to kind of answer questions throughout the class, or excuse me, throughout the webinar, so that we can just keep up to date on those things. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right on into looking at the new versions. So just from a version standpoint, we're talking about RISA 3D, RISAFloor, and RISAFoundation. 3D is now up to version 20. RISAFloor is now at version 16, and RISAFoundation version 14. And for those that have current maintenance and or in our subscription customers, you should have already received notification that the update is available. Or if you haven't opened the software in a while, you can open the software and you should receive a notification that there's a new version available. As always, you can go ahead to the RISA customer portal. So to the download section of the RISA customer portal, and you can download the new versions. So again, these versions are up to date, and you'll be able to see all of the information associated with those versions there. And we'll go ahead and talk about more specifically about the different new features in each of these three products. And so to start, obviously, RISA 3D being kind of the main, our main product, has certainly the most that has been updated. And we're really excited about some of the improvements within RISA 3D. First, some usability improvements. And again, we're going to look at some of these live, but I just wanted to kind of mark some of these out or list some of these out for those listening here. We've added some customization of the view toolbar. So the ability to kind of customize the toolbar and create your own what we call bins and set your own buttons and do some different things there, which I think are really exciting, giving you some more seamless workflows and really enhancing the workflows of users. We've implemented what's called a viewer mode, and it's really kind of what it sounds like. It's a viewer mode, and we can go ahead and see how that what the benefits of that type of mode are. And then we've added some enhanced rotation tools as well. We've also had a few material code updates, pretty highly requested ones, two specifically, both as they pertain to walls. The first is seismic design of masonry walls. And so that's something that we've seen more and more requests for as that becomes something that more and more engineers are doing. So that has been added according to the American codes. We've also added design of back-to-back hot rolled channels in RISA 3D. And then finally added concrete wall design according to the Canadian CSA codes as well. Another really big kind of request from a variety of users as people get more and more comfortable and do more and more multinational US and Canadian projects in RISA. The last enhancement, or the other big enhancement in RISA 3D, is new updates to P-delta analysis with including geometric nonlinear stiffness. We've written an article about this, and I encourage you to check that out. We're not going to go into it in great detail today, but essentially, really, it gives you some better benefits when you have to look at P little delta. Generally speaking, in the past, if you wanted to look at P little delta in a RISA 3D model, you would put individual nodes, kind of internal nodes along the length of a member, so that that member would, kind of experience those deformations. But this kind of more robust analysis, rather than just kind of the more straightforward P-delta analysis that RISA 3D has included for a long time, will, kind of take over from that and give you kind of more accurate analysis from that. But again, if you want more depth and detail, there's a lot of theory and stuff written out in our help file, as well as our documentation. For RISAFloor, a few nice new things. The first big one is hanger columns. Again, a big request of people who are doing these internal mezzanines or are doing maybe industrial structures that have hung mezzanines. So we see those a lot and a lot of requests for those. And so we've added those recently. We've also added some methodologies, some better methodologies for slab modification tools. These tools are actually similar to what we find in RISAFoundation. So I'll actually demo those in RISAFoundation, but the tools are really the same. Really cool and give you kind of just more like point and click abilities to kind of change slabs and openings and regions and stuff like that. Also a bunch of material code updates for RISAFloor. Added back-to-back hot rolled channels, the design of WTs and double angles, the design of cold form face-to-face channels and tubes. Obviously added the Canadian concrete wall panels to RISAFloor as well. And then also updated steel joists to include the latest SGI spec, which is the 45th edition. So all of that is included in RISAFloor as well. Finally, in RISAFoundation, we've added the ability to design single piles. So piles that don't have to be connected to anything, don't have to be connected to a pile cap or to a larger, mat slab. Or combined footing, if you will. So individual piles can be designed now. Also some modeling enhancements, and this is what we'll talk about, modeling wall footing corners, and then also some slab modification tools as well. Really just the ability to have these things work together appropriately so that you can see the results that you require when looking at these types of things in RISAFoundation. For all the new features, just for your reference, you can always visit risa.com/new features. This is our kind of new features hub for all of our products. And so you can always see the release notes, the tutorials, general reference information, but also always click to view the updates. And when you click to view the updates, you'll get a specific page that is built for the specific product that you're looking at. And then it'll have listed there either the video or the article that corresponds with the main feature. So if you're not familiar with that, you'll be able to see everything there. And that also gives you a history too, right? So you've got a history of 3D, what information came in the releases prior to that, as well as the release notes for all of those. So just kind of some food for thought as you maybe miss something in this particular demonstration, or you just want to check that out for your own reference. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to jump into RISAFloor. And so we're going to start in RISAFloor, and I'm going to go ahead and take a quick drink real quick. We're going to go ahead and start in RISAFloor and start by talking about hanger columns. So I just have a very basic floor plan here. There's only one floor plan. I don't really have anything else going on. So just the one floor plan. We can see we've got some just kind of the viewing of this is pulled back. We can go ahead and look at our floor here. See, we have a 16-foot elevation, and everything else is pretty standard, pretty straightforward on this particular floor. And so if I want to go ahead and add in a hung mezzanine level, how do we go about doing that, right? How would we go about doing that in RISAFloor? So the first thing I need to do is I need to create another level, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert a new floor, and I'm going to call this, let's call this mezzanine, and it's going to be a beam supported floor. And I'm going to go ahead and set that elevation. That elevation, let's call it 8 feet. Let's just say it's half the distance between where we're at now, the 0 and the 16 foot, which is this the base and this level that we have established now. I'll just keep it at the office area load, but we'll go ahead and create our own area load as well. And then I'm going to make this a composite deck, and the deck angle can be 0. That's okay. And I'll just go ahead and click OK. And so now I've got this level. Now, obviously nothing on this level quite yet, but we can go ahead and start to model. Now, before I do that, as I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead into the area load definition, and I have a mezzanine area load in this particular case already defined. And so it's very similar, to the office load, but I've said, okay, it's 10 pounds a square foot in a post-composite dead load, and it's 40 pounds a square foot in post-composite live load. I said this live load is actually non-reducible in this case. And then we've got some vibration and some dynamic load as well. And so this is maybe the area load that I'll use for that particular level. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do here is I need to close out of the mezzanine level, and I'm gonna actually go back to the first floor plan. And let's look at this in plan view. And I need to draw in my columns. And so when I do that, I'm going to go into our drawing tools and select columns. And here in columns, I'm selected on the hot rolled column. And the first thing that I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go ahead and select hanger columns. So you can see a new option right in the middle here for hanger columns. And we can see that I only have the 2 levels here, but the bottom level is going to be the mezzanine level, and the top level is going to be that first floor plan. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we would expect. And so I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And then I can go ahead and start drawing in the columns where I want them. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn on the universal snap points so I can get some intermediate snap points between some of our bays here. So I'm going to go ahead and just start dropping in columns. So 1, say 2, 3, and let's come down here, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Now the first thing you'll notice is these are, I'm making these gravity members. They could certainly be lateral members, but I'm making them gravity members. And you can see they've got a little kind of like orange kind of hanger, if you will, to denote that that is an actual hanger column. And so these columns then, if we go ahead and look at them in the column spreadsheet, we can see here that they are denoted as a hanger column, right? So here they've got that checkbox here as a hanger column, which means that their fixity at the top is always going to be pinned. That's something that we cannot change. Well, actually, it is something it isn't something that we can change because that's the actual kind of methodology of that type of hanger column there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Also, this particular column is already defined. Now, if we go ahead and look at our next level, so if we go back down to the mezzanine, now we have those columns available, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and connect the dots then now, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just draw beams to just kind of connect the dots between our hanger columns here. So let's go ahead and just kind of connect all the dots here. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the infill framing tool to say number of equal spaces in the vertical direction. And I'll just kind of create something very simple there. Now, the last thing I need to do here, obviously, is I need to add our slab edge. So I'm going to go ahead and choose these diaphragms. Slab edge, we'll say, let's make the overhang 3 inches. And the diaphragm type can be rigid. That's fine. And so it's selected there. I also want to make sure I'm going to open up the floors spreadsheet here. Now, one of the things that we need to make sure that we check here is this no wind / drift checkbox here. Now, there's no lateral load that's going to be transferred on the mezzanine level or this hanger level. So because it's not connected to anything other than going upward. So all the load from this floor when it comes to a lateral will actually go to the floor above, that main floor above, that floor plan 1. So in this case, we don't want any lateral load to be applied into this particular part of the system. And so now let's go ahead and maybe take a quick full model look here. So we might need to change, just look at our wall panel. So we just, our wall panels just are, just being drawn this way, but we can kind of see here, if we go ahead and look at the rotation here, we can kind of see then our mezzanine level here, right? And so if we go ahead and run a quick analysis, so we'll just let RISAFloor kind of churn through something here. And let's go back to our floor plan here. Go. We can see that, we've got the, we can see that on the, the members, obviously we've got this, we've got the load applied here so that the load from these columns is being taken onto these particular beams, which they're kind of hung from, right? We can also see if we look at the column here, we've got this negative axial, right? Obviously that tension in the column there, which we would expect from these columns that are hung from this level that are these hanger columns. Now at this point, obviously, we could go ahead and transfer this model to RISA 3D, right? And continue to work through the regular building design process for this particular project. But as far as hanger columns is concerned, this is the kind of the end of the process from a modeling perspective, creation perspective for the use of these types of hanger columns. Now you can make these hanger columns be quote unquote a lateral member, which means that they would show up in RISA 3D. They don't have to only be gravity members. If you want that element to show up in RISA 3D, you can do that. You can define them as those lateral members. That's fine too. But again, we're not going to have, generally speaking, from these mezzanines, these hung mezzanines, we're not generally going to have, lateral diaphragm analysis that's being done on these hung levels. Okay, so obviously, as we mentioned, some of the other improvements to RISA, some of the other improvements in RISAFloor, obviously, just if I open up the codes here, some updates to our steel joists, right, with our 45th edition, which includes some new long span joist tables. We've also added, while concrete, you're not going to see an update necessarily here because CSA has always been here for concrete beams and stuff like that, but we now do have the ability to do concrete walls in the CSA. Again, that's available, but that's also available in RISA 3D as well. So let's go ahead. I'm actually going to go ahead and close out of RISAFloor, and I'm going to jump now into RISA 3D. So let me go ahead and open up RISA 3D here. So let's open up RISA 3D, and we're going to go ahead and open up a model and talk about some of those usability improvements in RISA 3D, and also then talk about some of the seismic masonry wall improvements. And so when I'm opening my model here, we'll see here that I've got a model that's got a variety of different things going on in it. It's got steel members, it's got some braces, it's got some masonry walls here. So it's really kind of like maybe like a warehouse with a two-story, maybe office section or portion on the left side here, this kind of like little lean-to section. And so now I do have results available in this particular model. And so the first thing I want to kind of just kind of call out to make mention of is we have brought back from version 17 and prior, we have brought back our stepped rotation tools. So the ability to kind of rotate based just on clicking rather than just kind of rotate using, in this case, I'm using shift in the middle button on my mouse or by grabbing this kind of rotation cube here. So again, this is very similar to what we had in previous versions. One of the nice new improvements in this is the ability right on screen here. Oops, I just kind of shifted my stuff here, but the ability right on screen here to set our rotation direct or increment. So if I wanted to say 45 degrees, right, I could go ahead and just set it to 45 degrees, right? And I could, set my rotation so that, we're going to get something quite a bit different, right? And so just giving you flexibility in rotation. Maybe you like to do that rather than, being able to kind of rotate, or you find it hard to rotate in this fashion because you're always kind of bouncing around and not really able to get the right look at things. The other thing that we've added here is some additional presets here. So we've always had the ISO presets, the XY, XZ, and YZ, but we also added the mirrored or the opposite. So basically just giving another look at it, right? In those presets, just giving you, again, more flexibility to look at the model in the ways that you want to look at it, especially when you're looking at results, to be able to see the things that you need to see in the orientation that you really want to see them in. Okay, so the next thing is I want to talk a little bit about the viewer mode. And so viewer mode is a new mode in RISA 3D. It's not an unlicensed version or anything like that. It's just a mode within within a model, within the project, that would allow you to maybe look at results or input or output in a slightly different way, looking at it maybe in a little bit more of a concise way. So let's say in this particular model, I want to look at some results. So I could obviously turn on results now. So like if I turn on all my axial forces, I get results for everything, right? Now, previously, we also have the ability to like use our locks and our dim locks. So, for instance, if I choose a lock, right, I would only see the results, on this, but I wouldn't see anything else, right? And I couldn't select or grab anything else. I could also choose dim lock, right? So if I choose dim lock, right, I can go ahead and select some stuff and choose the dimension or the dimming lock. But again, I can't select anything, and these are just the members that are available here. What viewer mode allows for is either the ability to pre-select some elements. So again, if I select some elements and go into viewer mode, similar in look to the way that dim lock works, right? In the sense that I would just see the members that I've selected. But what it allows me to do is still giving me selectability of the entire model. So really the way that people generally use it is to not have anything selected and then just to turn on the visibility or the viewer tool. And so now the viewer mode is active. You can't actually make any modifications in this model. And it's automatically filtering the spreadsheets, both input and output spreadsheets, based on your selection. So for instance, if I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and select this stuff here. I've selected this kind of information, this data. I've got some walls. I've got some beams. Obviously, those beams and members have some results on them. Maybe I'm looking at my deflection again of only those elements. And so when I'm looking at only those elements, it's also showing me only the results on those elements, but it's also filtering all my sheets. So if I go ahead and open up members, right, I only have a few members. Now in this case, I've selected quite a few members, but I could go ahead and let's go back here, right? So if I turn the viewer back on, maybe I'll just select like a very few number of members here. And now if I go ahead and look at members, we'll see pretty plainly that, hey, it's filtering out everything except for what I've selected, right? And so again, because you have things available here, we can always just go ahead and add things to the selection, right? I can hit escape and restart my selection. So I could say, you know what, I actually just want these 4 columns or these 4 columns, there we go. And I want axial load for these 4 columns. And I want my envelope load combination. Okay, and I also want to see my unity check. Okay, and so I can see all this information, kind of really quickly, really easily, so that not only I could make maybe a screenshot or a set of view for this, but I can see exactly what I'm looking at. Also, again, because it's filtering, if I just go open a code check, I can see really quickly and really plainly exactly the table-based or spreadsheet-based results that are following along with my graphical selection here. And so again, this is kind of analogous to maybe a little bit more the way that in the way selections work to previous versions. But again, the idea here is to give users maximum flexibility to do what they want to do, see what they want to see, how they want to see it, be able to kind of filter through and select things as they want, and look at different information. Maybe it's looking at an XY view here and grabbing the side here, and then now we've got this kind of selected here, and we can kind of easily do this. Maybe it's then taking a screenshot, right? Taking the camera shot here and looking at that information and then dropping this in our report, right? All with the idea of being able to look at results and review these results in a more robust, more efficient way. Whether it's graphical or whether it's in those spreadsheets because they're filtering. So that is our update with what we call viewer mode. And so I'm going to go ahead and reset our view here. The last thing I want to look at, the thing actually that I'm the most excited about, is what we call the ability to customize the view toolbar. And so obviously the newest version of RISA 3D is a pretty, or the newest user interface of RISA 3D is a big change from what people had been used to prior. But one of the things that we wanted to do was give the user the ability to customize as much of the toolbars as possible. And so while the tab-based toolbars, the ribbon-based toolbar isn't going to change, what is have the ability to be modified is what we call the view toolbars. And so these are all the tools here in the view toolbar. Basically, it's the toolbars, the buttons that exist within a view, right? So inside of this 3D view, we have these different toolbars and buttons. And so with that, we can go ahead and look at what we call bins. So these containers or bins that are predefined. So right now I'm going to go ahead and click on this new button up here. It just looks like a little wrench. This opens up our bin library. And so within our bin library, we have the 6 predefined bins that exist. So obviously the rotation bin, the snap view bin, the loads results view bin, which is here. We have the 2D lock bin, that's the little 2D guy here. The selection bin, here's all our selection tools. And then finally the quick commands bin, okay? Those are our 6 bins that come preloaded, pre-default with the product. Now, when you see the text here in blue, these blue bins mean that they can be modified or edited, right? So if you want to delete the 2D bin or the selection bin or the quick commands bin, you can do that. If you want to edit it or add information to it, you can do that as well. The view bin and the rotation bin and the loads bin, those are kind of static bins, right? You know, generally speaking, they are fundamental to the way that we want to allow people to do their work and the design. Obviously, you don't want to lose this bin because then it would be hard to change the load combination or the load case to view different results. So you're not going to be able to edit those bins or delete those bins. But we can obviously edit one of them. So if I go ahead and choose quick commands here, maybe I want to edit the quick commands bin because I want some additional buttons to show up here. And so I'm going to add quick find, which I think is under the quick buttons here. Yep. So here's quick find. I can go ahead and click on quick find and click to add. And so now I've added that here. I can go ahead and click OK. And now we've got quick find, you know, right on that toolbar as well. Now, in addition to adding in that fashion, all these bins have a little kind of arrow here that I could click on. And then the ellipsis, the 3 dots, which brings me to the edit of that custom bin. And again, I can kind of work through that same process. So if I wanted to remove connection detail reports or something, or remove what I just added, which was quick find, I could do that as well. Now, if I wanted to add a completely new bin, you know, maybe in this case, I want to add a new bin because I want to put some of my modeling, my most used modeling commands or features right on my view here. So I'm going to go ahead and right click right here in the kind of the open view toolbar and say add bin. And I'm going to go ahead and add a label. So I'll just say like modeling. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a few different types of elements. So let's go ahead to draw and say, yeah, I want members. I want plates, and I can double click to get them in there too. I want wall panels. I want boundary conditions. Okay, so that's good. Let's see, what else do I want in there? With members, normally I trim and extend the most. So I'm going to go up down in here to modify and to members. And let's go ahead and add extend and trim. And then with plates, I usually submesh. So I'm going to go ahead to modify and plates and choose submesh as well. Okay, so I'll click OK. Excuse me. And now I have that toolbar available to me, right? And so now if I wanted to, you know, if I was in drawing tools and I didn't want to jump back to the home, or I didn't, you know, I could just go ahead and click the member tool and start modeling, or I could go ahead and click the wall panel tool and I could start modeling, right? I can just really quickly and easily use those quick buttons to get me back to those most used features. Now you can also grab a bin and move it and reposition it. So I could, you know, grab this bin and I could go ahead and put it over here, right? So I can move, and I can move all of these, you know, bins around, right? You know, put the ISO one on top of it or something like that. So we can move around and reposition these as we want. I can also, if I go ahead and open another 3D view, right? So these 3D views, because they are different views, they have different view toolbars. And so I could go ahead and, you know, have a different bin in different places, right? I can do some different things here as well. So, you know, we have some flexibility on how we want to see some of this information. Now, one of the other big kind of abilities here with our bins is the ability to set some defaults. So right now, obviously, if I go ahead into File and Application Settings and then click on Advanced here, right now my interface layout template is set to Custom. And so custom means that I've customized it, right? I've made some changes, I've made some updates. I've, you know, got this new bin here. I've got this new button on this new bin. So I've deviated from the default, right? And so custom is available, and then we have default, right? Now I could go ahead and save this custom as something else. I could retrieve a previous one. So if I had a bunch of different types of tool layouts set, I could go ahead and retrieve a previous one. But the other one that I want to kind of point out is what we call classic view. And so if I choose classic view and I click OK, this will take just a second because it's going to go ahead and do a bunch of stuff. We now have kind of the button layout that is similar to the button layout that was available in the previous interface of RISA 3D. So this is kind of the classic button layout that people were used to in that interface. Now, there's a few things obviously that are different, right? You know, we didn't have this load kind of selection and viewing and stuff like that is new to the new interface, right? It's a brand new thing. So it exists where it didn't have a predecessor in the previous version. But you know, that's an actual benefit, right? Obviously, some of these buttons, in the sense that we have some different view buttons and such, are a little bit different. But all of these buttons now are kind of their predecessor are now here. Now, with that, you know, some people have asked me, well, like, you know, told me like, oh, Ben, I really love classic view and stuff like that, and I really love the way that version 17 and prior looked, and I don't really like using the ribbon. So in this case, you know, if that's the case, you know, obviously we think that this ribbon provides a really good workflow, but if you want to and feel more efficient in another way, what you can do is turn on this classic view, right? Which gives you all these buttons. And then you can come up here and click on this little arrow to minimize the ribbon. Now the ribbon's going to be there in the sense that you're going to still see these things, but generally speaking, you're not going to be bouncing around the ribbon then as much because you're going to be using the buttons that exist here, similar to the buttons that you used before. And if you need the ribbon, you can always just select the ribbon. But in general, then that ribbon is going to, you know, be minimized. And so that's really up to you on how you use it. But again, the idea here is that RISA 3D needs to be a tool that can be flexible in how you, the engineer, want to work, right? Whether you've been working in RISA 3D for 30 years, or you're like me, that's a little bit newer to RISA 3D. You know, I came into the company, you know, right at kind of the release of the new interface, and I really like it. And it's the only thing I know, right? So this is the way that I like to work. But it kind of gives you both options, gives you a little bit of the best of both worlds that you can combine and make for yourself the best workflow for you. Okay, now, as I mentioned, I'm going to jump back into our, I'm going to go back into my, my custom view here because classic view is not my speed, which is okay. And the last thing I want to talk a little bit about here in this model of RISA 3D is our seismic masonry. And so with that, you know, I've got some masonry walls defined. And so if I go ahead and look at seismic design rules, we've always had these hot rolled and concrete tabs here, but we also now have this masonry wall tab. And so the basics, ordinary, intermediate, and special masonry walls are available, right? And so really there's, by default, the special boundary elements and the multiplication of the shear in ASD are applicable to special shear walls. And so if I go ahead then with those defined, I can actually obviously select a wall panel. So let's just select this wall panel here. And we have that seismic rule applied for a masonry wall. So again, I can choose none, ordinary, intermediate, or special. In this case, I've chosen special. And so if I want to run that analysis with a special design rule, I can. So I'm just going to go ahead and solve. Let's just solve the batch and envelope real quick. So again, we're just using the cores in our computer and just kind of churning through a variety of load combinations here. And now we can go ahead and look at some results. So the best way I think to look at seismic related results for anything, whether it was a concrete wall or a brace frame or whatever, is in our detailed report. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a detailed report here. And so you can see right off the bat that we do have a special seismic design rule defined. So that's right here. But then as we scroll down a little bit here, let me make this a little bit smaller here. As we scroll down a little bit here, we can see our seismic detailing based on region. Just like we have in plane, out of plane based on region, we can open up like our seismic detailing for this region R1. And that R1 region here, in this case, is on this right side of the window. And so here we can see now, based on, whoops, it's my fault. Just clicked out of it there. Based on the code, so we're from the TMS 402 here. You know, we can see based on out of chapter 7 mainly, you know, the different requirements of that code and whether we pass or fail, right? So detailing, you know, rebar openings at wall edges, at tops of the wall for horizontal and vertical reinforcement. You know, coming down here when you get into special seismic, you know, you get into these max flexural checks and then the increase here, right? So this is, you know, that seismic shear increase. for ASD, and then obviously a simple mortar check here. So all of these things are being done now for each region in a given masonry wall. And again, this is based on that TMS code. And so, you can, so now, with the ability to utilize the special seismic provisions from the masonry code, the software can be used a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more robustly for those projects where, you have those more high seismic conditions, right? Okay, so let's now go ahead and actually, the last thing I just want to mention here, I'm going to go ahead and jump into settings. And yeah, advanced here. And just want to mention here, when you want to, I mentioned this a little bit in the PowerPoint, but if you're going to go ahead and change your standard P delta analysis from the nodal shear to the geometric nonlinear stiffness, that option here is in the advanced options of the solution settings. And so that's where you go ahead and set that for your P delta analysis. Okay, the last thing I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and close out of my RISA 3D model here again, and I'm going to go ahead and open up now RISAFoundation. And so let's go ahead and launch RISAFoundation here. And let's talk a little bit about some of the really nice new modeling tools that exist in RISAFoundation. So I just have a really simple foundation here, nothing crazy, so mainly a matte footing here. But I want to talk about some of the modification tools. So prior to this version, it might have been hard, if something shifted, it'd be hard. It might have been easier to just redraw an opening or a region or even a slab if a change happened. And so in this case, though, now I'm going to go ahead into our drawing tools and I'm going to open up our modify edges. And first, I'm going to start with, let's say, modify openings. So if I want to modify an opening, I now can choose to modify the opening corners. And so I can merge points, I can delete them, but more probably often, you're going to go ahead and move a corner. So I'm going to go ahead and select to move a corner and click apply. The interface now tells me, okay, now click on the slab edge or the opening edge that you want to redraw. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and let's toggle on my snaps and click there, right? So I can just really quickly and easily kind of move the nodes of an opening, while I'm in this command, based on, nodes in the model, right? So I can go ahead and resize this opening. Now I can do the same thing if I recall that last dialogue. I want to do the same thing with a slab thickness, right? So like in this case, I've got a slab thickness here that's applied. I think this is a 30-inch matte slab, and this is maybe a 12-inch like sunken portion or thickness. I can go ahead and modify that region by, again, doing the same thing and moving the corner. So, shifting that corner here, shifting that corner here, right? I can go ahead and make that a possibility, right? And so really being able to more easily and efficiently change some of the things that I've already done based on, maybe you find out, especially with like a thickness, right? Maybe you find out, oh, I thought I made that thickened slab big enough, but I actually need to thicken it out more, thin it out more. And so I don't want to redraw it and kind of lose all the things that are associated with that, design strips and stuff like that. I just want to resize it. So that's pretty easy. The other option here is the ability to go ahead and do the same thing for slab edges, right? And so if I want to do it for slab edges, I'm going to come back into that same modify edges, and I'm in slab edges. And so I'm going to go ahead and I want to redraw an edge here, right? So I'm going to select to redraw an edge, and I'll go ahead and click apply. And then I'm going to select this edge down here. And so I'm starting, basically, I've selected kind of the bottom half of this edge, which ties me to the starting point is N5. And so if I want to do that, I can basically start drawing kind of wherever I want, as long as I end at another part of the slab. So I'm going to go ahead like to here and to here and to here, and then I'm going to go ahead back to N3, right? And so then I can really quickly and easily shift or manipulate that edge of that slab, basically saying, okay, I started at N5, and so N5 is that beginning point, and then I can click wherever I want between that beginning point and wherever I choose to end, right? In this case, I chose to end at N3 to then redraw that edge. And so it's basically just like it's kind of like a polyline edit tool within inside of RISAFoundation to be able to edit that slab edge. And so again, maybe you're not going to do something as crazy and as drastic as this, because you're not going to go from this, more simplified kind of squared off edge to something like this, but you kind of get the idea of the ability to be able to edit that a little bit more freely, a little bit more graphically as you need to. Now, the last kind of modeling tool that I wanted to mention is one with kind of wall footings, but there's kind of our custom lateral wall footings. So if I open up the wall footings tool here, we have this option for strip or lateral footing. And in most cases, people are using these when they want to do either a lateral wall footing, which basically is going to amount to a slab with a stem wall on it, or they have some other kind of goofy condition in which, kind of a standard retaining wall or a standard strip footing isn't going to work for them. And so if I choose this, but then I choose to keep this wall continuous, basically I can go ahead and set my criteria for this wall. So I'll set my stem wall thickness and, my footing width. So that's fine. And then if I go ahead and start to draw, so here to here to here, you can see that because I'm modeling a slab, basically it's modeling a slab underneath here with a design strip, it's going to go ahead and it's going to, kind of give me that corner appropriately, really, because we don't want that overlap, right? In previously, I'd have a slab that would end here, right? So straight line end here, and then another slab that would straight line end here. And that wouldn't be overly useful, right? Because I would get this overlap and this interaction between those slabs that didn't really exist. And so this gives me a more accurate approach, a more accurate look at what's happening here. Now we could do this obviously in the initial draw, or maybe if I want to go ahead and do something like this, right? Same sort of deal. It recognizes where those slabs are and, gives me, the layout that's appropriate for me, right? So it's automatically doing this kind of trimming and this kind of, filleting at these corners so that it doesn't give you the overlap, so that it's going to analyze appropriately. Because when we look at it, if we go ahead and look at this in an ISO view, let's go ahead and turn on a rendering here, right? These are actually slab elements that are interacting with each other. And so because those are going to get meshed, we want to make sure that those meshes work well together, right? And so that the transfer between those elements, because we want them to be continuous, we have that checkbox on, we want that slab to basically act as one big slab together, right? And so that's really the benefit of the ability to be able to do this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and shift back to my PowerPoint here. And before we go ahead and end, I wanted to just kind of mention, let's go ahead and shift here, live demo. We also do have coming up soon a new release for RISAConnection. So we're just in the final stages of testing for that. And so we won't have another webinar for it, but we will have some videos and articles to go along with some of the new features. The first new feature is extended and shear tab connections. So just a little picture of one such connection there. So either basically having the plate be, the plate that connects the beam to the column as well as kind of the gusset element, or, having a plate, there's another option where you'd basically have the plate here that would also connect to the gusset or the other plate to then, make this connection. And so this is a pretty highly requested connection type as far as brace connections go. And so it's something that we've added in this next version, which will be version 13 of RISAConnection. The other, which I'm actually really excited about, and this should be really exciting for people that often or are looking to work more closely with RISA 3D, RISAFloor, and RISAConnection together, is the ability to kind of expand the way that you can define connection defaults. And so basically being able to, for any connection and for multiple options within that connection, be able to set what you want your default to be. What's your beam or column section? What's your angle type? Your flange type, is it welded or bolted? All of these different things, so that you can more easily grab from defaults or use those defaults when you are assigning connections that are coming in from a RISA 3D model or a RISAFloor model or something like that, or you're just starting from scratch and using a model, directly from RISAConnection. And so really, it's just a more robust way to manage, I think, larger projects. And for those people that do a lot of connections, in RISAConnection, which we have quite a few of those types of people, this should be a real help, a real time saver to be able to set and use those defaults. Certainly, it'll take a little bit of work at the front end because you'll have to set up those defaults the first time. But then after that, you'll be able to really leverage these defaults to great success. And so, like I mentioned, that will be coming in the next few weeks. I know that they're just kind of finishing testing now, and so you should see some more information about a release for that in a few weeks. With that, we've kind of come to the end of our time together. And so, I know Alan has been answering some questions throughout. If you have other questions, now is a great time to ask them. Obviously, if you don't, get the opportunity to ask a question or something like that, and you want to reach out to myself or Alan or anyone else on our staff, please feel free to do that. If you've got support questions, you can reach out to support@risa.com. If you've got sales questions, our main channel is info@risa.com. You can reach out there. We have also been recording this webinar, and so we will post the recording of the webinar on our YouTube channel for people to review. So you can catch up on anything you missed, or if there's someone in your office that maybe missed something, or if you want to share something with someone, this video will be on our YouTube channel over the next day or two. So we'll keep the questions open for a few more minutes. But otherwise, if you don't have any other questions, we really appreciate the time, appreciate you joining us. And if you need more information, again, reach out to us, reach out to support, or more on the sales side, reach out to Alan and I. We'd love to set up a time to talk with you about maybe some new features or just your workflows. If you're interested in any of our products, we'd love to sit down and do what we call a software tour with you. So thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. And we're thankful for your continued support of RISA.